All right. I think we can go ahead and get started. Does that sound okay, Margareta, Adam?
I think that sounds good. We might, just because we have a pretty small number of people here, I know um, John, Larry, members of the public, and I believe Rochelle's with LGO World. If would it be helpful to get some info on
Yeah.
your all's interest in this project, and maybe we can just make sure you get the information that you need tonight. I don't know, John, if you want to give us an idea of what brought you here with us.
Well, I've been riding a bus for many decades in Lawrence, and fortunately now that I'm a retiree and I have my KUID card, I can ride for free all over town. So I ride the bus to campus. I ride from my house, which is near Checkers, down to the library or to other places. I also ride my bike. I'm just interested in seeing that this bus system gets expanded and optimized for everybody's benefit and also for mine. But I don't have an introduction other than that, except I feel really lucky that the system serves me as well as it does.
Okay, great. Thank you for coming out tonight. Larry, I don't know if you want to share your interest in the project or if you use the bus currently. We dropped off. No. Okay. Well, Boris will probably let you get into it then, and those others that join along the way, they can pop in, but this will be recorded for everyone else.
All right. Excellent. So yeah, thanks, Serena. Thanks, John, and Rochelle for joining us this evening. The topic of our discussion tonight is the Lawrence Route Redesign Study. So this is a study we've been working on for several months now. And tonight what we're going to be doing is presenting some scenarios, some preliminary ideas for how the service can be restructured. And this didn't come out of sort of, out of the air. It's a process that we've been working on for several months. And before we started developing recommendations and scenarios, first we did a lot of analyses. So we did a market analysis, which looked at, independent of where service is today. The market analysis kind of looked at where there are opportunities to support where in the community different types of transit are most likely to be supported based on demographics and land use and things like that. We also did service analyses. So the service analyses looked in depth at every route and how it's performing today in terms of ridership and productivity, on-time performance, things like that. So those things, plus our first round of stakeholder outreach, which was several months ago, all those three things combined kind of helped us understand the strengths and the weaknesses of the existing system and kind of put us in a position to start developing recommendations and scenarios for service improvement. So that's where we are now. Before we begin going through the scenarios route by route, I want to show a really brief video that's kind of an illustration, I guess you can call it, of what microtransit service is. Microtransit is a term we'll be using a lot tonight, and since it's a fairly new term to many people probably on this call, I'm going to go ahead and show this video, and then we can see if there's any questions. But I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. Share with sound. Okay. Let me know when you can see my screen. All right. All right. 1 second. I have to rearrange my windows here to make sure that everybody can see. All right. If you don't hear this, give me some sign, but here we go.
I think they're the best thing since bacon. They're on Johnny on the spot. When I need them, they've been available. And that's great. And I just need to run to the darn store for one darn thing, and here they are. The other car transport services are too expensive for a senior,
So VIA, in my opinion, is like an extension to the bus service. Here we have the YOLO bus going by, and they run every hour on the hour. So riders, what they love about us is it's similar to Uber and Lyft, but it's corner to corner, and it gets them to their locations a little bit more conveniently throughout West Sacramento. There are some passengers that absolutely 100% this is their form of transportation.
I have to depend on others for transportation, and so many things need to be done during the day when my rides are not available. I'm on a mobility scooter, and so I'm rather limited as to what I can use.
It's a lot less dangerous, like especially late at night. Like if I'm a girl alone and I have to walk like at 9 o'clock at night. They have like the $10 VIA pass for all week, and you get 4 rides a day, and that's what I usually do because it's like so much cheaper. Sometimes you meet new people on the rides. That's pretty cool. You get to make friends, and I just really enjoy it. I really hope that it stays. Like I would die if it didn't. I like if it went away, I would be like on the phone with the mayor. Like, what are you doing? I need this back.
Okay. So everybody could hear that, right? Okay. So that's a real brief look at what Microtransit is. Just in summary, it's an app-based demand response service. So it's a shared ride type of service using vans or minivans or things like that. People can dispatch the vehicles directly through an app on a smart device, a phone or a tablet. So they don't have to, call up a dispatch or anything like that. It's all in real time. You can see where the vehicle is in real time. It functions very much like Uber and Lyft, but it's a more of a transit type of product versus a single ride where, one person gets a ride and the next person gets a ride. With Microtransit, it's a shared ride type of service. So that's Microtransit. And now, any questions just real quickly about that before we jump in route by route? Okay. So tonight we're going to be presenting 2 scenarios. The idea behind these scenarios is that there's usually more than one way to improve transit service. And the scenarios are in some cases very similar and in some cases very different, but we develop the scenarios to test kind of people's responses to different ideas. We know that neither scenario will satisfy everybody. And in the end, the idea is to see what elements of each scenario do resonate with the public in Lawrence. And the ultimate goal is to then develop a third scenario that's sort of a hybrid, potentially a hybrid of the 2 preliminary scenarios, and is reflective of the elements that are most popular between both scenarios. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So we'll start with scenario 1, and we'll start with scenario 1, route 1. And we have an ability tonight to show the routes individually. We can compare the routes to the current service. So that's the orange line you see is the proposed route 1, and this is the current route 1. We also have other layers that we can turn on and off as we discuss. For example, we have a transit potential, which is the market analysis piece that I talked about earlier. We have ridership by stop, for the existing ridership by stop. So that's kind of the service analysis piece that I talked about earlier. So we can look at all those things, as well as points of interest. So it's, if there's any reason, if somebody has a question, why did you choose this street versus some other street, we can kind of show, where there's ridership generators like schools, hospitals, grocery stores, apartment complexes, things like that. So we have all of that at our disposal. If anybody has any questions at any point, please feel free to raise your hand, or not even raise your hand, just blurt it out, and we'll go along and answer all the questions as we go. Okay, so beginning with route 1, the idea of route 1. So route 1, as proposed in scenario 1, operates between downtown and the East Hills Business Park. So this is the East Hills Business Park here. The 2 main changes from the current service are that service is shifted from Haskell to Massachusetts Street in order to serve Dillon's, which is over here. And then the service is also extended from its current end of the line, which serves the community shelter and the jail, to instead continue past the shelter and the jail and serve the East Hills Business Park. So this is the proposed scenario for Route 1. Now, Route 1 is also proposed to be interlined with Route 5. So interline is another concept we'll be talking about quite a bit tonight. Interlining means you take a vehicle, and that vehicle operates not just on one route back and forth, but that vehicle sort of alternates between two, sometimes even more, but in the case tonight, between two routes. So a vehicle that comes outbound on the Route 1 would then transition once it gets to the East Hills Business Park and go back on Route 5, and vice versa. Route 5 would then transition to Route 1. There are many reasons why you would consider an interline. One of those reasons is to reduce duplication. So you can have a vehicle, once it gets to a key turnover point, it sort of, covers sort of the same area, begins the next route. Another reason to do it is to ensure connections are always made. So if a person is trying to connect between the two routes, if the same vehicle is actually operating those two routes, then the connection is guaranteed. And then the third reason to do it is from a scheduling standpoint. This is kind of behind the scenes type of stuff, but basically some routes are too short and other routes are too long in order to operate them in the schedule that you want to operate them on. But if you join them together, then you can have a cumulative cycle time that allows you to operate, let's say, hourly service or 30-minute service or whatever service frequency you're trying to get at. You can provide that on both routes. So interlining is again where the vehicle transitions to the next route rather than returning along the same route. So the idea of interlining Route 1 and Route 5 is that you have access both to the shelter and the jail and the East Hills Business Park. You have access to those key community locations, key community destinations, both from downtown and from the Bob Billings Hub, the new Bob Billings Hub, which is currently under development. So any questions about Route 1, and then I'll talk about Route 5 briefly as well. But any questions about Route 1?
I have a dumb question.
No such thing, but yeah, go ahead.
Let's say you take Route 1 to get to work from downtown. How do you get back to downtown?
Great question. So you would take Route 1. You would take Route 1 back. Just the interlining is something that happens behind the scenes. It's an operational trick. It's not something that typically the passengers need to worry about. So if you're a passenger and you look at your schedule, you'll see that Route 1 heads outbound and Route 1 heads back inbound to downtown. And you just check your schedule to see when there's a Route 1 that's heading back to downtown, and that's the bus you get on. You, as a passenger, will not notice the interlining unless it is marketed on the schedules. And sometimes it is marketed on the schedule. Sometimes what agencies will do is they'll say Route 1, and then if you go down the schedule at the very last kind of time point, it'll have a note that says Route 1 continues on to Route 5. And that lets people know that they have what's called a one-seat ride. So in other words, if a person stays on the bus at the end of the route, but they're trying to get to, I don't know, the Iowa Street corridor, let's say, they know that they can stay on the bus and that bus will continue on along Clinton Parkway toward Iowa. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. So it's just a much longer route. I mean, it'll still go back to downtown. It's just,
well, no.
You'd have two buses like the other one. Like you would still catch one to downtown, but you wouldn't realize that it had already gone all the way over to the Bob Billings.
Exactly. So it's not a longer route from a rider's standpoint. Yeah. It's a longer route for the operator. The operator gets to have some variety in their life. Instead of, just doing the same route back and forth, they do one route, then do the other route, come back and do the first route. But from a passenger standpoint, it's not a longer ride. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I might just add, Boris, just to add to that, that you would put enough buses on this route to get the frequency you want, because it is a very long loop. But the assumption would be you put enough vehicles on it to get, if you still wanted 30-minute frequency or whatever frequency you wanted, put the right number of vehicles on it to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. The operating principle is the same as any other service. You have to have the right number of vehicles to match to achieve the frequency you're looking for.
And the driver has to remember to change their destination sign once they become the Route 5.
Right.
Yeah.
In some agencies now that is being done sort of automatically. There's based on geolocation, but if not, then the way that it's ensured that the driver remembers to do that is you want to build in a little layover at the end of Route 1 before it transitions to Route 5. So there's that kind of break point. So once they get to the East Hills Business Park, maybe they'll pull over for a minute or two, change their head sign, and then continue on.
Okay.
Yeah, great questions. Okay, so the Route 5, which is on the screen here, I'll show this is the current, this is the current Route 5, as you guys probably know. So two main differences. Number one is that instead of having a terminus in the retail core, the Iowa Street kind of retail hubs with Walmart and Target and all that, instead, this route goes to the Bob Billings hub. So that's one major difference. Another major difference is the current route deviates off of 23rd Street into Haskell. So this deviation here, the proposed in this scenario does not do that. So somebody at Haskell that's trying to get onto this Route 5 to get to Bob Billings or anywhere else, they would need to make their way to 23rd Street. However, instead of deviating into Haskell, there is a deviation on Route 5 that it heads south of 23rd Street, where you have a high concentration of multifamily housing. So in this scenario, the bus comes down to 24th Street, and then it crosses Iowa at 25th, and then it heads back up to Clinton Parkway, and then from there, it heads over to Bob Billings versus via Castled. So those are the Route 5 differences from the current Route 5.
Okay, so I board 5 Louisiana 23rd Street, and I like to ride out to Target. Is that not going to be possible anymore?
So you said Louisiana 23rd?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Right. So there's still in this particular route would not go to the Target. There will be other routes, so we'll show that, but this particular route will not go to Target.
Okay, well, just go ahead and proceed then.
Okay. Good question. Okay, so next we'll talk about Route 3. Okay, so this is the current Route 3, as you guys know, the current Route 3 heads from downtown up toward kind of north of 70 to the sort of light industrial areas up there. It also serves the Hallmark facility. But what it does is it operates along Michigan and Iowa Street, and it operates as a one-way loop. Michigan is served southbound only. Iowa is served. Did I get that right? Yeah, Michigan is southbound. Iowa is northbound. So people on both corridors only have service in one direction. What we're proposing in scenario 1 is to do something completely different with Route 3. Rather than going north of Lawrence Memorial Hospital, the route would, from downtown, serve Lawrence Memorial, and then it would head down to the Bob Billings hub. So it allows for people to have access to Lawrence Memorial, which on the current Route 3, ridership really falls off north of Lawrence Memorial. This is kind of the peak of the ridership, and then it really declines after that. But this route provides service again to the hospital from both from downtown and from the Bob Billings hub. The other important change on this route is that rather than ending downtown, the route is actually extended past the Amtrak station. So it would serve the Amtrak station, and then it would go all the way down to East 9th Street and turn around there. So it's extended both to the east and to the west. So that's Route 3.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of serving Amtrak when the trains come through in the middle of the night and your bus is not running?
It's a good question. So that, the Amtrak service, may improve someday, and maybe it'll be worth serving. I believe there's also, if I'm not mistaken, there's bus service, also intercity bus service, I believe, that uses that station, or am I wrong there?
Not that I'm aware of. I just, I love to ride Amtrak. I just hate their schedule coming through here. But
yeah,
I just thought I'd point that out.
Sure. Yeah, so there's that. There's also the growing kind of activity center down, on the 9th Street area. Maybe I'm not using the right terminology, but there's new multifamily housing that's gone up here. There's some new businesses, restaurants, things like that. So this is an area with some ridership potential as well. Okay. Now, the service north of the hospital in this scenario would be provided by Microtransit. So I'll kind of show what that could look like. Okay. So this is one of the potential Microtransit zones that would operate similar to what was shown in the video. If a person did want to go to the Hallmark facility or some of the other locations that are north of 70, that would be an option for them. The Microtransit would be an option for them. Okay. So that is Route 3. Now we'll move on to Route 4. So Route 4 is...
I mentioned, Boris, before we move on, just to round up the discussion around Microtransit a little bit, that will be a service that one could access via dial phone, right? I mean, it could call a dispatcher and have someone enter their on-demand trip into the system. So just to, I guess, clarify that it's not only for people that would have access to smartphones.
Correct.
Even though that's a very useful piece of it, but would still have access in that way.
That's absolutely right. So yeah, the Microtransit service, you could request by phone as well. In this scenario, we've sort of created several Microtransit zones. And the idea is that Microtransit is, in this scenario, used for local circulation and then first and last mile connections. In other words, if you want to travel really cross town, Microtransit is not the tool to do that with. You would use Microtransit more locally, connect to a fixed route, and then travel a further distance on fixed route. And then if need be, you could connect another Microtransit service on the other side of town. But it's it's a zone structure in this scenario.
One more question on communicating. You mentioned the app and iPhone. Would Microtransit also be available to use as desktop computers?
It's not usually used that way, because the benefit of using an app, a mobile app, is once you request first of all, your geolocation is usually pulled from your mobile device. So when you open it up, it kind of knows where you are. Have you ever used Uber or Lyft, John?
No, I don't on a cell phone, and I realize that makes me highly weird, but I just, why don't you go ahead, since I'm such an outlier you call that, go ahead and do your presentation and assume that people like me aren't going to be a major problem for you.
Well, I mean, as Adam said, there still is the option of just calling in. So there's no reason you wouldn't be able to use it if you didn't own a smartphone. It's the benefit of using it with a smartphone is that you can actually see where the vehicle is in real time. So once you make the request, you can see on your phone, okay, the vehicle is coming. It's like 10 blocks away. I see it approaching. You can prepare. So it's just, there's that added level of convenience. But you can still utilize it even if you don't have a smartphone.
Okay.
All right. Very good. So, okay, Route 4. So Route 4, the end of the line for Route 4, two ends of the line would be the driver's license examiner's office on North 3rd Street. So up here would be one end of the line. The LMH West campus, the new LMH West campus, is the other end of the line. So this kind of combines the current Route 4 with the current Route 6. So there's a few key changes here from both the Route 4 and the Route 6. But the reason to combine these is that we're trying, the aim is to make every route a strong standalone route. And the way that you make a route a strong standalone route is ensure that it has a good mix of origins and destinations. So if you have an area that has a lot of origins, a lot of kind of residential areas where people are catching the bus, you want to also ensure that they have access to grocery stores, pharmacies, Walmarts, those kinds of things. And so North Lawrence right now, the riders have access to the Merck Co-op, but they don't have access to any other large grocery stores or big box stores or anything like that. So under this scenario, they would have a one-seat ride, to downtown and then on west toward the Walmart there, and there's several other grocery stores on West 6th Street. So that's the big picture idea. A couple other changes is moving the route from Lion Street up to North Street. There's a mobile home park on North Street that has ridership potential that we think if they were served a little bit more conveniently, we'd see some more ridership there. So that's one of the big changes. The other changes are like I said, just the fact that you'd have a one-seat ride heading all the way out west to the LMH West campus. So you'd have access to Free State High School, Rock Chalk Park, and as well as a Dillon's on 6th. So any questions about this idea or comments?
Doesn't that make that route awfully long when you make it like that?
It would be a long route, but again, it would have multiple vehicles assigned to it. So you could have it fairly long, and still, if you have 2 or 3 vehicles, you could have reasonable frequencies, even if it was a fairly long route. The challenge really, when you have a long route, the issue is whenever you build a schedule, you have to build enough recovery time for the drivers to ensure that, when they're done with a trip, there's enough recovery that they're not falling behind to the point where a one-late trip sort of propagates through the schedule. And that can be achieved, regardless of how long the route is. It's just if you ensure that there's enough layover at the end of each trip. Kind of rule of thumb, you want 10% of the cycle time to be recovery time. So if it's an hour route or a 2-hour route, it doesn't really matter. You just need to ensure that there's 10% recovery built throughout the route.
So basically the drivers would get a break downtown still.
So where they have the break is to be determined, but in this case, you have kind of the end of the line at the driver's license office and at LMH West. So operationally, I think what you're getting at is there a place for them to go to the restroom and things like that? So if their layover was not downtown, although it could be downtown, but if it wasn't downtown, then we'd have to find a suitable place for them to be able to pull the bus over and find, bathroom facilities and the like. Does that make sense? Sorry, you were muted there.
Sort of, yeah. It just, the Route 6 right now goes from Rock Chalk Park to downtown, and it's like a 30-minute route. And the drivers, it's pretty comfortable for the drivers to take a break at either end. So it seems like if they go up to North Lawrence, that would add another, 15 minutes onto that route. So yeah, I'm just curious how all that stuff is going to work, how it's going to, you know, how the routes are going to meet up, and people are going to be able to get off one bus and get onto another, if it's still going to work the same way.
Right.
The way it does downtown right now. I mean, obviously that's not going to be the main transfer point, but it will be like a secondary one, I
Right.
assume. So.
Yes. And what I would say is you shouldn't think of the routes in the terms of how long a route takes today and what adding a little bit of additional service will mean, because there's many ways that we can address that. So interlining is one way to do that. This route, for example, could be interlined with another route that serves LMH West, the Route 10. We haven't talked about it yet, but that route ends at Bob Billings. So if we didn't have layover at LMH West, the layover could be at Bob Billings. So we're trying to ensure that at some point, if a route is interlined, at some point that bus will get to a place where there are bathroom facilities, where there is an opportunity for a layover. But I would just encourage you to sort of, not think of it in the context of where buses are stopping today and where the layovers are happening today, because all of those things could change going forward. But we do have at top of mind that every route needs to have sufficient layover time to allow it to be run reliably and to allow the drivers to have, their layover time. Okay. All right. So any other thoughts about this idea of connecting North Lawrence to the 6th Street corridor and out to Rock Chalk Park and the LMH West campus, as well as Walmart? All right. If not, we can continue on to Route 5. Okay, we did talk about Route 5 in terms of the interline with Route 1. So this is kind of, I won't spend too much time on it talking about it again, because we have a lot still to cover. So Route 7, this one, John, will probably be of interest to you. So the Route 7 shown here, the ends of the line would be downtown on one side and the reserve on West 31st over here on the other side. So this route is being restructured to create a one-seat ride from the multifamily housing that's along Haskell Avenue. There's a lot of it along Haskell Avenue. A one-seat ride both to downtown and to the South Iowa retail hub, or call it what you will, the Walmart, the Target, and so on. From 23rd and Louisiana, so this is 23rd and Louisiana, you would have, under this scenario, your one-seat ride to Target. So you end up, heading to Target, and then that route goes a bit further to the reserve, these apartments here. And this route is actually also envisioned to interline with another route, Route 11, which we haven't talked about yet. But if you're just going to Target, and then you're trying to get back home to Louisiana and 23rd, you would just look for the Route 7. So you take Route 7 to Target, you look for the Route 7 back home.
Okay, am I hearable at this point?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, normally I take 7 downtown to the library. It looks like instead of going down Louisiana and Mass Street, I'd be going down Haskell, which would probably be not that big of a difference.
That's correct.
And so anybody that takes the 7 and try to get to Dillon's on Mass is out of luck unless there's some substitute route for them.
Right. So you're talking about the Dillon's on Mass?
Yeah.
Right. So this route would not get you to the Dillon's. For what it's worth, Microtransit could be an option. If you wanted to travel from Louisiana Street to that Dillon's, Microtransit in this scenario would be an option. But the idea here is Haskell has a really high density of multifamily housing, including some low income housing. You can kind of see some of them here. I'll just kind of illustrate it a little bit better. So if we turn on points of interest, so you have multifamily housing, the Douglas County housing here, and then some other multifamily housing. We want to give those folks access to grocery store locations in a one-seat ride, so they don't have to transfer to get to the grocery store. This way they get to the Checkers on 23rd. They can also continue further south. They can get to the Walmart. They can get to the Target. And then because of the inner line, they can even get to additional locations along Iowa Street through an inner line. In other words, they wouldn't have to change buses. But that's the idea. The Dillons, however, would not be one of those destinations that they could get to. Not this Dillons anyway.
Well, I normally shop at Checkers in the Merc anyway, and I could ride my bike to Dillons en masse, but I have seen a number of people ride 7 and they get off at Dillons. And so those people would probably maybe just need to change their store. I don't know, but go ahead. I mean, I'm sure this new idea is definitely worth trying.
All right. So let me quickly cover the 11. So that the 11 is shown here. The 11 would operate between the Bob Billings hub and that same reserve on 31st Street, where it would change its head sign. The idea here is we want to give access to all of the retail destinations on South Iowa to people, from the Haskell Avenue corridor, but also for people that live along Naismith, even, people that may live on campus or near campus to KU. But we don't want to duplicate service. So this route, Route 11, when it comes to the reserve, which is here, it changes its head sign and then it goes out as a 7. That means that both the 7 and the 11 cover all of this retail area in through here. And again, you could market that on the passenger schedules by letting people know this bus will continue on to Walmart and Target and everything else. You don't have to get off the bus. You can just ride on through. So that's the idea here. Okay.
So 11 doesn't go through campus anymore?
The 11 in this scenario doesn't go onto campus. It comes close, 19th Street. So if a person is trying to get to campus, they could get there either by foot or by transferring to another bus. And definitely if they were to get to the Bob Billings hub, there would be very high frequency service between the Bob Billings hub and campus. We'll talk about those routes in a minute. But this route in this scenario doesn't go into the heart of campus now.
Okay, well, it used to be 10 and 11 were the buses I would take from downtown up to campus. Does 10, did you talk about 10 already?
No, we're getting there, but we haven't talked about 10 yet.
I'll let you go on.
Okay. All right, so that's the 7 and the 11. Next, we'll talk about Route 9. Okay, so Route 9, let me actually turn on the current Route 9 to really illustrate the main difference. So there we go. So the current Route 9 is much longer than the proposed Route 9. So the proposed Route 9 would just operate between the South Iowa retail area and Clinton at Wakarusa. So it would turn around in this neighborhood here. It would not go as far north as Free State High School. So this area, this part of Wakarusa would be cut out. So the idea here is to get folks from all the multifamily housing. There's a lot of multifamily housing south of Clinton Parkway in through here, as well as south of Clinton Parkway near Iowa, to get all those folks, fairly fast and convenient service to get them to retail destinations on Iowa Street. However, this route is also envisioned in this scenario for interlining. So it would be interlined, let me turn that on, with the 29. So the 29 looks like this. Just come on, there you go. So the 9 and the 29 share an alignment along Clinton Parkway and through the residential areas along Wakarusa and so on. But one of them goes to the Bob Billings hub and the other one goes south on Iowa to all the retail destinations. And so this is interlined, again, to kind of avoid duplicating service in a way. So a bus that comes out on as a 9, once it does the loop, it goes back on as a 29, and then 29 goes back as a 9. All right. So that's how that works. All right. Any questions on that? Comments? Okay, we'll talk about the 10 next. Okay, so the 10 would operate between the Bob Billings Hub and the LMH West campus. So it's truncated at the Bob Billings Hub instead of downtown. If we compare it to the current Route 10 that you may be familiar with, this is the current Route 10. I'll turn it on and off a few times so you can see the difference. But the current Route 10 does go through the university and then on to downtown. The proposed Route 10 would terminate at the Bob Billings Hub. The idea, again, with the Bob Billings Hub, as you'll see this kind of theme throughout the evening today, is that we want to strengthen it as a hub. So if you're able to make it there, you have dozens of transfer opportunities, and you have very frequent service from the hub to other key destinations, obviously KU, but then also the LMH campuses, you know, the new one or the old one, and Point South as well, and Haskell. So lots of transfer opportunities from the Bob Billings Hub. Other key points on the Route 10 is that it also provides new service along Wakarusa. So north, I guess you can say north of 6th Street, there is a lot of new residential development through here. So this provides new service along this kind of northern part of Wakarusa, and connects it to the Walmart, connects it to Rock Chalk Park, and connects it to the LMH West campus. Okay, any questions there?
Can I ask, Boris, so this one is potentially proposed to interline with 4, is that true?
That's right. So, yep, it would be 4 and 10. So,
yeah. So one of the things I just found interesting about this idea is it's been a little vexing to figure out the best way to serve those areas of Overland and Wakarusa between just east of Rock Chalk Park. You know, they're 2 parallel corridors. They're pretty close together. Hard to figure out how to serve them without doing some sort of loop. I find it intriguing in this that if you lived on Overland or Wakarusa up in that area, you could pretty easily make your way either to the hub or along 6th Street downtown with that interline. That's just an interesting configuration.
Right. And so you know, that could be something that you may want to market on either schedule, saying this bus continues on to this other corridor. And, you know, in the beginning, if you implement some of these ideas and the interlines, it's a shock to the system in a way. People aren't used to it maybe, but over time, I think people will see the value of having so many of these what's called a one-seat ride, meaning they don't have to get off, they don't have to transfer, they, you know, continue on. And each of these routes or each of these pairs of routes have a really robust group of you know, trip origins, trip destinations, ridership generators, key locations that people want to go to. All right, so let's move on. We did talk a bit about the 11 already. Oops, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Okay, so the 11 here would, as I said, it would be interlined with the 7. It would serve a lot of residential areas. So you have, you know, access to campus, you have Naismith Drive, you have all of the apartments that are on 24th Street, and you know, destinations or the apartments that are south of, I guess you could say, the 23rd Street corridor, and then it gets back to the Iowa Street corridor. So this is the link, a link from the Bob Billings Hub to retail destinations on South Iowa, with lots of multifamily housing in between that serves as the kind of lifeblood to get, you know, ridership onto the system. So that's the 11. Okay, next we'll talk about 27. So the 27 is a route that is meant to link together lots of different educational institutions in Lawrence. So on the south end, you have the Peasley Center, which is a kind of vocational school. Then the bus would go into Haskell Indian Nations University. So it actually go into the campus versus what we talked about earlier, service from 23rd Street. So it would go into the campus. It would also go through KU and Lawrence High School here. So it links together the high school, the universities, the trade school, and it ends at the Bob Billings Hub. So anyone that can make their way to the Bob Billings Hub has access to this, educational connector, I guess you can call it.
Is this the new 27 we're looking at?
This is a proposed 27 in scenario 1.
Okay, because that's the main bus I take to campus from 23rd, from 19th in Louisiana. Does it still go by that corner?
So it wouldn't operate on Louisiana. So you would have to make your way. There's a few different ways you could connect to it.
Yeah, Boris, it does go by the 19th Louisiana corner, just on the north side of Lawrence High.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So okay, but did you mention that you live south of 23rd or?
I just live essentially across the street from Checkers and east a couple of blocks in Given Court, an old area.
Okay, so Checkers is here on 23rd Street. So, yeah, it wouldn't come down. It wouldn't operate on Louisiana Street, but it would have a stop at the corner of Louisiana and 19th. So what you would do? Yeah, let me turn this. Oh, sorry. So one option you would have would be to take Route 7 and then make a connection from Route 7 onto Route 27. So you can do that on 23rd Street. There's a couple of places, basically where they overlap. So from Haskell, from Haskell campus, all the way to Haskell Avenue, those would all be transfer opportunities for you.
Well, when the weather's good, I can just ride my bike down to 19th Street and put the bike on the bus at the corner of Louisiana. Okay. So I'm going to miss all of the routes that go straight down Louisiana, though, because those are very convenient. Anyway, so the 27 goes up to campus. It looks like it goes way out west. Go ahead and finish your speech on that one. So
it goes through campus and then it ends at the Bob Billings Hub.
Okay.
So another, I'm starting to sound like a broken record about Bob Billings, but it's sort of by design. We're trying to strengthen Bob Billings as this sort of main hub for the system. So lots of routes are ending at the Bob Billings Hub.
Well, currently 27 is a single bus looping at 40 minutes. Can you say would that change? Would you have more than one bus on that loop or not?
So the service frequencies have not yet. We're not quite there yet. We're not. So the way that we're doing this process is we're trying to focus on coverage first, and then once we have that kind of hybrid scenario, tonight we're talking two different scenarios. Once we narrow that down to a single hybrid scenario, that's going to be kind of the coverage we're talking about. And then the next step is to assign service frequency to it. So span of service and service frequency to the one preferred scenario, the one preferred coverage scenario.
Are you going to get to a point and tell me when there's any service from downtown to campus?
Yes. Okay. We're getting there. We're really close, actually. I'll try to speed things up here. Okay. So we talked about the 29 already. That was the one that's in line with the 9, so I'll skip that. And now, Route 100. So it's called Route 100. It's sort of similar to the current Route 30. Let me just turn on our transit potential layer just so you can see a little bit of contrast behind the scenes. By the way, this, John, I don't know if you saw any of our previous meetings, but this color coding here that I just turned on is showing transit potential. The more red, so the scale is green and gray are low transit potential, yellow, orange, red are high transit potential. So that means those are areas that have the highest likelihood of generating fixed route transit ridership.
That makes sense.
So the reason I brought that up here is because this Route 100 is the route that it's envisioned to be like the main connector between campus and downtown. And it would be a fast and frequent service. It's a very simple route that just goes from the Bob Billings hub on one side to downtown Lawrence on the other, with the university in the middle. And so that's the route that you've been, I guess, waiting to hear about.
Yeah, that looks like a lot more sensible route than the 10 and 11, because they went way down south and stuff. So that looks like a great improvement to me.
Okay. And you'll notice that it goes right through the heart of the highest transit potential, one of the highest transit potential areas in Lawrence. Okay. So that's Route 100. Next is Route 34. So now we're starting to get into university-focused service for the most part. And I'm curious, John, do you have interest in university-focused routes, or now that you're retired and whatnot, what's your main interest tonight?
Now that I'm retired, I can go to KU for free, so I'm super interested.
Okay.
I also swim up at Robinson Gym, but the thing is, as close as I am to campus, and I can still drive, I'm just considering when I'm 85, I may not be wanting to drive my Prius all over the place. So, So tell me about this new route here that you got. Okay.
So Route 34 would, on one end, end at the West 7th Street corridor, which is up here, and then the other end, the West 25th Street corridor down here. So both of these areas are very dense in multifamily housing. Both of these areas are dense in off-campus housing. So folks live up here and down here, and they're trying to make their way to campus. So this consolidates several existing KU routes, or parts of several KU routes, the 34, the 41, the 38. So it's a longer route than any of those other three. But what that longer route allows us to do is it allows us to have more flexibility in providing the service frequency that we want to provide at different times of day. Because if a route is 60 minutes, let's say, then it can be with one vehicle, you can provide that service hourly. With two vehicles, you can provide service every half hour. You can also provide service every 15 minutes or every 20 minutes with 3 or 4 vehicles. So you have a lot of flexibility. So it's a fairly long route. It may look like it's a very long route, but you can throw enough vehicles onto it to provide whatever service frequency you want to provide. Does that make sense? Serena, do you have any thoughts on this route? You were muted, but I read your lips maybe to say no. All right. Okay.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
So this is the first route that actually goes through campus that I've seen. Are there additional routes?
So
and the other thing is, anything that goes down Jayhawk Boulevard runs the risk of significant delays because of the pedestrian traffic. So I'm wondering what the thoughts are about maintaining route times when you have to go through that kind of obstacle.
Yeah. It's a good point. So what I'll say, first of all, is Route 100, which we just talked about, that also goes through campus, and there will be others. We're just now getting into the campus routes. So most of the routes we'll be talking about from here on out will be going through campus. But yeah, Route 100 goes through campus, also operating on Jayhawk. So you're right. I mean, Jayhawk is a street that has a lot of activity on it. It's somewhat unavoidable. I think if you're going to go on campus, you have to go where the people are and where the people want to go. There could be opportunities to, improve the interaction between buses and pedestrians on Jayhawk. That's something that the university would have to have a big role in. For example, in some ways you can do that is by channeling pedestrian activity. So you can this is just an idea. I don't want to quiz or Margareta, I don't want to commit anyone to anything, but just some ideas that some other campuses do is they put barricades so that you can only cross major streets like this at designated crossing points, signalized intersections, and so on. So people aren't always just running across the street anywhere and getting in front of buses. That's just one idea, but it is a challenge. But it's also kind of unavoidable. I think you have to serve Jayhawk Boulevard.
No, I agree. You have to. I'm just, I'm curious. I take 36 occasionally when I don't want to walk to work. And I've noticed, they get way out of whack. And most of it's because of Jayhawk Boulevard, because there's a crossing every 30 feet. And so they get tracked,
Boris, this is Quiz. What I would probably chime in is, there is no doubt that there is pedestrian traffic on the boulevard, but to counter that, there's no vehicular traffic at all. It's the stops just in general. There's a stop. We have several stops along Jayhawk Boulevard. So I would be more concerned just from a pedestrian or vehicular standpoint. It's actually at the crossing points of Irving Hill Road and Naismith, and going up Naismith up to McLean's. Anything that gets along there, just vehicular traffic slows everything down. But I think the pedestrian traffic through Jayhawk Boulevard is much more manageable than, say, the section at going up Naismith to McLean's. That's my 2 cents. But
yeah, McLean's is a real mouse trap for me, because I tried to sit out, enjoy the scenery at McLean's, and the buses were so loud I had to run inside just so I could hear myself think.
Yeah. Okay. Good comments. We'll definitely record that for
and Boris, we're probably not going to be putting out barricades along Jayhawk Boulevard. That's probably not going to be happening. So
yeah. Quiz, do you know what I'm talking about though? It's not like it's just sort of railing along the roadway. I know it may not be happening, but barricades may be the wrong term, but it's kind of like railing that channels pedestrian traffic to just cross at the lights or at designated crossing points.
The students are pretty good at using the crosswalks that are there. They don't just cross anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just the volume, and there's enough. The students have the right of way. Obviously, the crosswalks are the right of way. So a lot of buses, you just have, when classes are changing, you have some delays that are kind of hard to schedule around, I would think.
Sure. Yeah. And we build that in. When we do the schedules, we try to have realistic running times. So we don't want to put the drivers in a position where we build a schedule that they cannot maintain realistically. So that's part of that is realistic running times. Part of that is sufficient layover time at the end of the route to, again, make sure that they can recover if they do run late on the next trip. All that goes into account. All right, so that's the 34. Now the 36. Okay, so the 36 is not that different from the current 36, but fairly different, I guess. But the end of the line. So on one end of the line, you have the Kansas Union. On the other, the Bob Billings Hub. So this extends from extends south to link the 6th Street corridor to the Bob Billings Hub. So if people are, living in the in the 6th Street corridor, this scenario gives them access both to the heart of campus and to the Bob Billings Hub, where they could catch another bus into campus, or they could catch buses anywhere else in the system. But that's the idea here. It's just an extension of this route down to the Bob Billings Hub.
36 used to run by the Merck. Will there be any bus routes that go by there in the future?
Yes, there will be. And actually the Merck is, the Merck is here, right?
Over by Centennial Park.
It's over on Iowa, so to the east.
Street.
Okay.
9th in Iowa.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yep. Sorry, I got that wrong.
So it still goes by.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. So it would still go by the Merck.
Okay.
Since we're on these KU routes, are these KU routes? Are these going to be permanent routes? So they'll be running all the time, or are these routes that are going to disappear when school's not in session?
That's also a really good question. So that's going to be something that we will address when we put together the schedules, because the schedules will be both like schedules within a day, but then also within, year, the service, how the service is going to run different parts of the year.
Mhm.
So that's a little bit to be determined. However, I don't know if, were you on when we talked about microtransit as a service idea or not? Who was that speaking? Was that Richard?
Oh, this is Richard. I understand the microtransit. I live close enough to my job and to groceries, because I live right next to Centennial Park, that I can walk to work or to the grocery store. I use 36 when the weather's bad, if I don't want to walk, or if it's super hot. But I also it seems like some of the KU routes, when you drop them, you cut off a lot of people from access to things. Students still go to the campus when classes aren't in session because some of them work all summer.
Sure.
And I think it's unfortunate when we stop the routes during breaks and stuff, because there's still people who work on campus who were using those routes.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And
Boris, I can chime in just a little bit. We would love to be able to be operating 6 days a week or even 7 days a week. Right now there's no Sunday service. And I say we, being from a KU side of things. Our funding pool is through the student government, through the required campus fees process. And we have a set amount of dollars that we'll have available at this point. So, the mission, and we've talked about the mission from the KU on Wheels side of things several times. The mission for those dollars was and currently is to get students to and from class. That's kind of been the mission that we've operated for the last 20 plus years. And so, when classes are not in session, that's why those routes have kind of went into hibernation, so to speak. And, if we had more funding dollars, and again, this will be a big conversation, I think, that we'll be talking about frequency, adding, I know I might not have even answered that. I'm just trying to explain it a little bit. So,
yeah.
No, I do understand that. Getting the students to class and stuff is important, keeping in mind that a good portion of those students, we'll say 5,000, are probably employed on campus.
Right. So, yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, this is an issue that happens in university communities all over the country, and it's also one of the benefits of microtransit service, because microtransit can serve to fill gaps, either geographic gaps or gaps by time of day or gaps by time of year. And so maybe it's not ideal if a person is used to riding a particular route during most of the year and then that route goes away. That's not ideal. But with microtransit, at least you would have sort of some safety net that would continue to provide mobility, anywhere where another route is dropped during part of the year.
And I might have missed this because I came in a little late. Can you define what the microtransit is? Is that like the Lyft buses now, or is that going to be something different?
So it's a bit different. Have you ever used Uber or Lyft?
Of course.
Okay, so microtransit is a app-based demand response service. It's very much like Uber and Lyft, but it uses vehicles that are more designed for transit, for shared rides. So if you can imagine Uber with a minivan, and instead of picking up one person and then dropping them off and then picking up the next person, you may pick up 2 or 3 people on the way and then drop 1 or 2 or 3 of them off, and then it's like a constant, turnover of passengers because it's a larger vehicle.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't want to slow it down too much, Boris, but I might just one other thing to add to that discussion about routes and their time of year availability. I do think, what this route redesign does is it kind of opens the door, I think, for KU and the city to talk about which routes we may coordinate on once this all kind of fits together at the end of the day. So, right now we coordinate on a couple of routes where we each put service on those to make sure they operate throughout the year. And that might be, depending on kind of how this shapes out, don't anticipate necessarily the city or KU having more hours to put on the street, but deciding exactly where to put them or to match them up, maybe on coordinated routes, could make, some routes that serve both students, but also the community at large, could provide some opportunities to maybe normalize what it looks like over the year for people in certain areas.
Well, and I think the hub thing also makes it a little bit more convenient for people. Because, used to, if I wanted to get to campus and I didn't want to walk and 36 wasn't running, my option was to take 4 downtown and then 10 or 11 or one of those buses, which was crazy because I could walk to work and less time than that would take. But I think with the hub solution, that might be a solution when the KU routes aren't running, that it might be easier to get to campus than it was in the past.
Yeah. Okay. Good comments. All right. So next is Route 41, another KU or KU focused route. So this route has its end of the line at the Kansas Union on one side and Becker Drive on the other side. So this is Becker Drive here. So this is extended to the Union versus the existing Route 41, which looks like this. So the existing route kind of does this one-way loop. Actually, it goes this way. This way. So Sunnyside to Sunflower and then Jayhawk Boulevard. So instead, in this scenario, Route 41 goes all the way up to the Kansas Union. The other changes are that you have service on Naismith Drive here. And so even though it's not going directly on Sunnyside, most destinations on Sunnyside would be, fairly accessible from this corner here of Naismith and Sunnyside. You also have access to the rec center. It could potentially go even closer to the rec center. I think that's been a comment before, but this route also provides service on Stewart Street, which is right here, or sorry, Stewart Avenue, which is here, and then goes through campus with access to the rec center. Any thoughts on that one?
So no Daisy Hill for that one?
No, not for this one. No Daisy Hill here. And what's your take on that? Would you rather it serve Daisy Hill, or are you?
It seems, I don't know. I don't know why it doesn't at least split and go to Daisy Hill and then back. Just because there's a lot of kids living there, so.
Sure. So the next route we'll talk about
the routes that hit Daisy Hill. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'll actually keep that on the screen when I show the next one. So this is the 42.
Yeah.
So 42 does a similar alignment, at least from the rec center north. It does a similar alignment. It also ends at the Union. So this is, I'll turn off 41. But what it does is it does hit Irving Hill Road and provide access to the Daisy Hill area. So if somebody from here is trying to get to the rec center, this provides access from the Bob Billings Hub plus the Irving Hill / Daisy Hill area to the rec center, and then on to the Jayhawk Boulevard and KU Union area. So, all right. And any thoughts on that?
I guess for quiz, those usually run almost all the time, right?
When you say all the time, do you mean?
Well, weekdays, I guess.
Yeah.
Normal class stuff.
Yeah. And one other thing to let you guys know. So, students trying to get to the rec center and recreate has always kind of been an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that we have at least one circulator route that goes by the rec center is beneficial there. But I also want everybody to know that if a student does own a parking pass or has parking permissions, they can actually drive their car down to the rec center parking lot, walk into the rec center, and say, hey, I live at Daisy Hill. Here's my plate. I'd like a 2-hour window to recreate. And we give them access to the parking lot down there for 2 hours. The big issue is we get some folks that try to pull a quick one where they try to get into that parking lot and then just walk to class or something. They say they're going to go in to recreate and then they don't. And so then we're trying to catch some of those folks. But just wanted to let you know that we have a parking alternative for those that do have a parking pass to actually park in lot 90 during the day if they wanted to go in and use the rec center.
Is that only good for students?
No, I don't know. I'm gonna have to check on that. If you send me an email, it would kind of refresh my memory. I can check on that for you. But in general, it's students. I don't think we've ever had a faculty or staff member ask that question, so I'd have to check.
What's your email?
So the easy one is AQuiz, AQUIZ at KU.edu.
I'm sure I could have found you.
Yeah.
All right.
Just out of curiosity, what's your tentative launch date for this new plan?
So we don't have a final plan yet. So we are presenting 2 scenarios that we are trying to get feedback on to then develop a final plan. So we're not at the point of having a final plan yet.
So
John,
thinking fall to 2022 or anything like that?
Well, so that's what I was going to jump in. Yeah, the transit facility at Bob Billings is planned to be completed by fall of 2022, and that's the goal for route redesign to go into effect. But Boris is right; we're at kind of the beginning stages of what that redesign will actually be.
Yeah. And I just realized that this is showing service crossing Iowa Street at 21st. This is incorrect. I didn't bring up the right layer, but there's no signal here, so that's not possible. So the only way this would work is actually the buses would come this way and then go up Stewart. So this is an error. So sorry about that. Small detail. Okay. Finally. 43. So 43 is the same as the current Route 43. So it would serve the Daisy Hill area and connect through Jayhawk Boulevard, serve the Union and the GSB. Is that the right?
GSP Corbin.
Yes. And so it would end there. And otherwise, basically it's the same as the current 43. So it's a pretty straightforward route, pretty simple route. So we didn't see much need to change that one around. Okay. So that's scenario.
And again, did I miss a bus that goes by the Spencer, or is there not one anymore? Spencer Art Museum is on Louisiana.
Yeah, let me bring up the entire scenario.
I was going to say that would be the old 42, I think.
Yeah, it's 42. 42 blue, I think.
Yeah.
I think so.
So so there wouldn't be service on Mississippi Street, which I guess is the closest.
Yeah.
But it would be a block away, Jayhawk Boulevard, and
just have to walk down to the Union.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's scenario 1. Scenario 2 should be a little bit faster because some of the routes are the same as in scenario 1. I guess I'll start first with, any questions, I guess, before we do that? Any overall big picture questions or comments on scenario 1?
I like what you guys are trying to do. I mean, I think it's admirable to try to look where people live and where they're going. So I do like what we're doing.
Okay. Great. So we'll continue to scenario 2. I'll just say we'll start with microtransit first. And the main difference, scenario 1 and 2 both have microtransit as kind of this safety net that shores up the other routes. The difference is in scenario 1 we had a zone structure. So the idea is that you have multiple microtransit zones. You can travel within the zone, but you cannot request a trip from one zone into another. If you're trying to go out, across town, you transfer to a fixed route bus. In scenario 2, it's a bit different. In scenario 2, you have a citywide zone and then kind of a KU overlay. And the KU overlay is sort of in order to provide maybe higher frequency service around the university, maybe longer service hours along the university, maybe more days of the week. But the idea with the citywide service is that you can get from anywhere to anywhere, but this would involve distance-based pricing. So maybe, for the first 3 miles, it would be $2 a trip. But then if you go beyond 3 miles, it would be maybe an extra $1 per mile. So, and the reason that you need either distance-based pricing or a zone-based structure is that microtransit works well when you have limits on the trip length. If you have very long trips, then typically it's hard to match a long trip among multiple riders. Like there's not that sort of convergence, that critical mass of people that are going to similar places. And you also don't have as much turnover. So the vehicles aren't as available for new requests as often. And so it becomes less productive. So you have to limit the length of trips somehow, either with a zone structure or through distance-based pricing. So that's kind of one key difference between scenario 1 and scenario 2. Okay.
Does this imply a political contest with regular taxi service?
It could compete with taxis, but it's a little bit different because it is a shared ride model more than taxis. Like if you are very, very pressed on time, you may find a taxi or Uber to be a better option because you know that it's just customized to your needs and nobody else. The taxi is not going to stop along the way and pick up other people unless you've planned it that way. With microtransit, you still have the element of shared rides. So a vehicle may be going cross town, and instead of going, the most direct path, it may deviate here, there, or but not so extreme to the point where it's very aggravating to riders. There's an algorithm involved where it would assign. With microtransit, typically you'll have multiple vehicles operating concurrently within the zone, so it'll assign the vehicle based on the most logical assignment to minimize the deviation for anybody that's already on the vehicle, and to have the optimal sort of productivity of the service. But it is still shared.
Envision as elderly people trying to get a hitch a ride either to a grocery store or to a movie or something like that. And if I got 3 bags of groceries, am I going to be able to cram them onto one of these things, or would that be discouraged?
No, it wouldn't be discouraged. That is definitely a use case that microtransit does see a lot in other communities. There is kind of a storage area in the back. There's also wheelchair. The vehicles are or can be wheelchair accessible. In some cases, the entire fleet is. In other cases, there's some subset of the fleet that is accessible. And the vehicles can also come in different sizes. So it can be a minivan, like an 8-passenger minivan. It can be a cutaway bus, which is the type of vehicle that's typically used for paratransit service. So there's a variety of ways to provide microtransit, but grocery shopping is definitely a use case that is done with microtransit. All right. Okay, so let's go through scenario 2, starting with route 1. Okay, so route 1 in scenario 2 is similar, but a little bit different than in scenario 1. So the main differences are that in scenario 2, two things. Well, more than two differences, but the route would end at the community shelter rather than continuing from the community shelter to the East Hills Business Park. So that's a big difference. The service is shifted from Haskell back to Massachusetts in order to loop in Haskell Indian Nations University. So it comes down, goes through the Haskell campus, and then out on 23rd Street. And again, it ends at the community shelter. So there's no connection in this case to the East Hills Business Park. All right. So that's a different version of Route 1. Next, we have Route 3. So Route 3 is very different than the Route 3 in scenario 1. Route 3 is actually interlined with Route 6, which is here. Let me bring up another layer so that you can more easily see this. Okay, so Route 3 and Route 6, the way that they work is they're interlined in two places. They're interlined downtown, and then they're interlined again at the north end of the route, which is the kind of the industrial park up here north of 1800 Road. And the idea is you currently, on the current Route 3, you have service, you have one-way service on the Michigan corridor, you have one-way service on the Iowa corridor, so nobody is served well. Everybody on the current Route 3 has to either ride around a big loop or walk part of the way because they don't have bi-directional service. With this scenario, both corridors have bi-directional service because you could go out on the Route 3, and that Route 3 will come back as a Route 6, but the Route 6 going out will come back as a Route 3. And so the effect of that is that you have buses going north and south, both along the Michigan corridor and the Iowa corridor. Does that make sense? So this probably would be a much more appealing service in both corridors to residents that live along either corridor, or to anyone going to work at the Hallmark facility, because it's bi-directional service. And they kind of converge near the Memorial Hospital. So, downtown and Memorial Hospital, they both serve those areas, but they take slightly different alignments, and then they diverge, and one serves Michigan, the other serves Iowa, and they converge again at the end. All right. So that's Route 3 and Route 6 in scenario 2. Route 4 is much more similar to the current Route 4 that serves North Lawrence. As in scenario 1, service is moved from Lion Street to North Street. So here you see North Street again instead of Lion. So that's just like in scenario 1. However, this is not linked to the 6th Street corridor as we talked about in scenario 1. Instead, all that happens compared to the current service is after the Merck co-op area, the bus continues on to the Bob Billings hub. Okay, any questions on that? That's Iowa Street there. Okay, so that's Route 4 in scenario 2. Next we have Route 5. Route 5 is similar to what we saw in scenario 1 with a couple of changes. It is decoupled from Route 1. So in scenario 1, you had service from the East Hills Business Park kind of linked to the community shelter and jail. Here, that's not the case. Also here, you have the deviation into the Haskell campus, which you did not have in scenario 1. But otherwise, in both scenarios, the end of the line is the Bob Billings hub, and then the East Lawrence Business Park. Okay, I think maybe we're moving into, well, soon we'll be moving into your territory, John, so you might find that more interesting stuff here in a second. So here's Route 7. So this is a little bit different than the Route 7 in scenario 1, and I'll kind of bring up some of the highlights. So one difference is shifting the route to the 11th Street corridor to get it closer to Just Food, which is over here. So from downtown, we have service on the 11th Street corridor, Just Food, and then down Haskell Avenue. The other difference is that we are cutting across east-west along 19th Street, whereas before we continued further south on Haskell to 23rd Street. So in this scenario, you have access to Lawrence High School. And then the other main difference here is that this is interlined in scenario 2 with Route 9. So the idea here is that you can, wait, actually, that's the wrong scenario. Here we go. Yeah, there you go. That's Route 9 in scenario 2. So the idea here is that you can travel from this neighborhood here, the neighborhood along Lawrence Avenue, kind of south of Clinton Parkway, north of 31st Street. You can travel from there directly to Lawrence High School, which is something that is possible today, but is not possible in scenario 1. And that's, from what I understand, a pretty important connection to preserve. So these 7 and 9 are interlined at the reserve apartments here. So Route 9 comes into the reserve, changes its head sign, goes out as Route 7. So both routes have 1-seat ride to get to all the retail in through here. This Route 9 then continues up Wakarusa, so out Clinton Parkway, up Wakarusa, and then ends at the LMH West Campus. So that is essentially one route, although the head sign would change at the reserve. Any thoughts there?
No, my part of that would essentially be the same. I don't think I would prefer one or the other.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on. All right, next we'll talk about Route 10. So Route 10 differs a little bit from the previous Route 10 in that service is shifted off of Wakarusa. This is the scenario 2 Route 10. And instead, service is shifted to 6th Street. And the reason for that is that in scenario 2, that Route 4 that we talked about does not cover 6th Street. And if you recall in scenario 1 from North Lawrence, we had the bus going downtown and then out 6th Street. In scenario 2, there is not continuous service from downtown along 6th Street. There are several routes that serve different sections of 6th Street, but there's not a single continuous route along the 6th Street corridor. So one of the routes that would serve the 6th Street corridor is Route 10, as shown. So this is Walmart here, and then it would stay on 6th. It would kind of cut through this area here by Sprouts Farmers Market, and then it would take Castled south and then end up at the Bob Billings hub. Any thoughts on that?
So if a person wanted to go from downtown out to the, what's the name of the new exercise place out there in the southwest part of town? Past, it's up past Wakarusa.
The southwest part of town, you're saying? Or
I'm sorry, northwest.
The northwest. The Rock Chalk Park area?
Yeah, Rock Chalk Park. Is there any, what's the easiest way to get from, central Lawrence out to Rock Chalk?
Yeah, so under this scenario, it wouldn't be as simple. So 10 would get you there, but you'd have to make your way first to the Bob Billings hub.
Okay, that part I understand.
Yeah, or you do have Microtransit as an option to get there more directly.
Okay. And so in scenario 1, how hard is it for you to tell me what the Rock Chalk Park route would be back there?
So in scenario 1, you have Route 4, which is shown here, that goes from downtown all the way out to Rock Chalk Park.
Yeah. Yeah, in that case, I would certainly prefer the Route 1 just because I would probably like to use that facility more the older I get.
Okay. And the idea of transferring at the Bob Billings hub, that's less appealing to you.
Well, I mean, I have to get there from the Checkers area. I mean, I figure this out with my schedules. I always work these things out. But normally I would just go downtown and then transfer to the 4 whatever and go out west.
Right. Okay.
I'm just trying to, not have it take an hour and a half for me to get from one place to another.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I have to say, I think Route 4 in the version 1 serves North Lawrence a little bit better in a sense. It gives them the one ride to all those shopping options without having to go to the hub and either go south or go back to 6th Street.
Yep. That's fair. Yeah. I mean, we, in every scenario, we're trying to change things up. We're neutral on, which of these is better or worse, and they may be better or worse for different people. We just want to get your feedback, but yes, they are different. And in some cases, one scenario is definitely better for some use cases than others.
And as long as I can get to the new hub as easily as I can get downtown, then I'm not going to beef too much about it. It's just a question of how hard it's going to be for me to get from the Checkers corner over to, Bob Billings. And I'll just have to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, so let me, the Checkers corner is here, right? So that's the Checkers corner.
That's 23rd in Louisiana, yeah.
Yep, so that's right here. So you would be able to make it from there to Bob Billings, and then from there, if you're going to Rock Chalk Park, you would transfer to Route 10. So
okay,
that's.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you show the map this way too, it's nice. Puts the hub in the center of Lawrence, which, even though we think of downtown as our center, it's not.
Yeah.
Geographically, it's not the center. So having the hub there in the middle makes access, I think, a lot easier for a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. It really illustrates it when you start layering on the routes. Yeah. Okay. So where were we? Oops. We talked about 6. We talked about 7. Okay, we didn't talk about 9. Oh no, we did talk about 9. Yeah, so 9 is interlined with 7. So we did talk about 9. But I guess one more thing about 9 in this scenario is that it does restore service all up and down Wakarusa Drive, whereas in scenario 1, there was a substantial gap in service on Wakarusa Drive. So for what it's worth, that's a major difference. Okay. Talk about 10. All right, so let's talk about 11. So this 11 is not unlike the 11 in scenario 1, but the interline pair is very different. So in scenario 2, this 11 is interlined with Route 38. And what they do is they kind of serve the same big picture market. So from Bob Billings down to all the retail on South Iowa, but they get there very differently. So the Route 11 gets there via campus. So it goes right into the heart of campus, comes down Naismith Drive, then serves all the apartments on 24th Street, I guess all the apartments on the east side of Iowa, whereas 38 serves a lot of apartments on the west side of Iowa. And instead of serving the Naismith corridor, it serves the Stewart corridor. So they're very similar to each other. They're just doing kind of parallel corridors that have a lot of similarities, but they're doing it differently. So, and then they interline once you get to the reserve. So basically, once you get to the reserve on the 38, the red line is the 38, then you would kind of go through the retail area and return on the 11, which is the blue line. Sorry, yeah, the 11, I'm getting myself confused. Yeah, the 11 is the blue line, the 38 is the red line. And they both would serve the retail hub through here after changing head signs.
38 sort of serves the nest too, then, doesn't it?
The nest is here, right?
No, I think it's behind Walmart.
Oh, behind Walmart.
Highway and Walmart, yeah.
Oh, wait, yeah. So I think so. This is. Let me make sure we're talking about the same place. Yeah, this is the nest.
Southeast. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the nest where you are now. There's no
Right.
doesn't look like there's any buildings there where that was taken, but
Yeah, this is right. But you are right. So the 11, once the 11 gets the reserve, it looks like it doesn't serve the nest, but it does because there's a 1-seat ride. So that
Okay.
bus becomes a 38, and the 38 comes this way and serves the nest from here, 33rd and what Wasachi? How do you say that?
Oh, and Boris, real quick
Yeah.
too. I think, and this isn't the end all be all, but I do think the Nest has their own bus that transports students up to campus. I think.
Oh, yeah, I see it every day.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
About since we're out that way, does anything serve the trailer park there by Target?
This right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we can't get there. This is about as close as we can get there. So
Okay.
33rd Street, because there's a dead end. There's this 33rd becomes a private road once it gets to the reserve, so you can't go that way, and there's no way to turn a bus around. So this is about as close as you can get. All right. So that's the 11 and the 38. Next is a 27. The 27 is the same as in scenario 1. So it is serving all the educational facilities from the Peasley Center to Haskell to the high school to the unit to KU, and then ending at the Bob Billings Hub. Okay, then the 29 is actually the same as in scenario 1. The 100 is also the same as in scenario 1. And again, more, if you'll notice, again, Bob Billings Hub is strengthened both with the 29 and the 100. The 34 is also the same as in scenario 1. The 36 is different. In this scenario, the 36 is actually very similar to the current 36. The main difference is its end of the line. The current end of the line runs through here, Gateway Court, and instead in this scenario, the buses turn around north of 6th Street. So instead of turning around south of 6th Street and heading back, they turn around north of 6th Street. And by doing that, it opens up another fairly large multifamily housing community, the Frontier. It makes that accessible to campus. Okay. So next we have 38. Okay, we talked about the 38 already. So then we have 41. So the 41 and the 42 are virtually the same as in scenario 1, with the main difference being instead of both of those continuing on to the Union, instead they do this one-way loop, Jayhawk, Sunnyside, Sunflower, Jayhawk. And so I'm curious if anyone has a preference of 41 and 42 in scenario 1 or 41 and 42 in scenario 2, based on whether they do a one-way loop or they continue on.
I think it makes more sense that they go by Jayhawk, but I know that not by the Union. I know that makes that area more congested though with all those buses.
Yeah, I guess the question is, how important is it to have direct access on Sunnyvale? Because you can, Sunnyside, because in scenario 1, you can get to these destinations, but only from the corner of Naismith and Sunnyside, versus here where you have service on Sunnyside.
Didn't it go down Sunnyside and up and then go over to the Union in the other scenario?
No, it went up Naismith and then Jayhawk.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd want to lose Sunnyside or not.
Boris, this is Quiz. Just to let everybody know, I'm attending there's a major project that's happening sometime soon where they're going to be reconfiguring Sunnyside, a portion of it, due to some of the buildings or what have you, what's going on there. So at the corner of Naismith and Sunnyside, anyhow, that whole configuration could look a lot different, maybe for the betterment of all traffic. But I would just say in general, for us, like on campus as a student, any kind of circulator component, just for us, seems to make more sense that it goes from one side of the campus all, to the other. So Daisy Hill to GSP Corbin back to Daisy Hill. Doesn't always have to be that way, but being able to serve both sides of that where students are at makes a lot of sense. But
I don't mind, walking or biking to Sunnyside, but any bus that'll drive me up that hill up to Oregon is much appreciated.
Well, that's what I was just thinking too. If you're on Sunnyside and you have to go up to Jayhawk Boulevard, it is up to Jayhawk Boulevard. So, I'm old and I can do it, but at some point I probably won't want to.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay. The one thing to keep in mind, though, is of course that if you have service on Sunnyside, you can only serve it in one direction. So you're right. I mean, you can go up to Jayhawk. You can't come back to Sunnyside. I mean, you can only come back as close as Naismith and Sunnyside. Like you'd have to get, you know what I mean? Like you get off there.
But I'm saying if you take Sunnyside off, then my only option if I'm working anywhere along Sunnyside is to walk across that part of campus up to Jayhawk Boulevard or walk back over to Naismith, depending on where I'm at.
Right. So you could walk through these paths from Jayhawk. You could walk from Naismith along Sunnyside, but you wouldn't have service on Sunnyside.
But I'm just wondering why, if you left Sunnyside in, why could you not turn right and do the Union and still keep the same?
Because
the same.
This intersection is a very difficult turn for buses. So the geometry of it, you can make a left turn, but you can't make a right turn from Sunflower onto Sunnyside.
Yeah, Boris, I think what they're saying is
up to the hill, when you get to Jayhawk, why not turn right and include the Union and then go back the way it is now, go back down Jayhawk.
Oh, I see.
You pick it up one way going this way, but you include Union in that route.
I see. So, okay, as a rule of, Quiz, did you want to say something before I respond?
That's what I was trying to state. It's all good.
Okay. So as a rule of thumb, transit works best when it's symmetrical and when it's consistent. So you don't want to have a scenario necessarily, like if you were to go this way and serve the Union and then come back on Jayhawk Boulevard, then people who got on Sunnyside wouldn't be able to get back to Sunnyside. They'd have to, and that sort of tends to confuse and aggravate people. I mean, eventually they get used to it, but as a rule of thumb, you want service to be as bidirectional as possible. So in scenario one, we had bidirectional service. It comes and goes in the same way. Or if you have a loop, you keep that loop as small as possible. So you keep the area where you have one-way service as small and compact as possible. So I don't know if that's a satisfactory answer, but that's kind of the rule of thumb.
Oh, I get it. The Union is a major place on campus.
Yeah. I mean, we could consider that. We could definitely consider a hybrid of scenario one and scenario two that does what you're describing, Union and then back, Sunnyside, Union, but then back on Jayhawk. Okay. So we are now on 43, which is actually the same as scenario one because it's just such a great route. And that gets us through both scenarios. So what I'll say now is that we have a survey online. Maybe you guys have seen it already. It's I don't know if a survey even does it justice. It's a very detailed description, route by route and scenario by scenario. And then tied to that, there's questions that are posed to anyone that's looking at it. It's on the Lawrence Listens platform. You can get to it by going to the Lawrence Transit website, and right on the home screen, there's a link to it, kind of on that top pane that that moves across the top of the screen. There's that. So if you would like to provide us additional feedback, or if you'd like to go back and take a look at any of these ideas in more detail at your own pace, you can go there to that survey and read up on all of these, both scenarios and all the routes in each scenario, and provide your feedback. So
this was a terrific presentation. Given the complexity of it, I would hate to have to do this myself. So I just want to congratulate you for making it from one end to the other.
Well, thanks for all of the great comments and providing context to some of the reasons why you ride and where you ride and how you ride. That's helpful.
Is there an interactive map?
Yes. So
or you can pull up the routes and compare them, or no?
Yeah, there is. Well, maybe I can bring it up, or if anyone has it, Rebecca, do you by chance have it, or Adam, do you have it handy?
Well, I was gonna, just paint a picture of a few other ways to explore this. So within the survey itself, there is a link to that interactive map.
Okay.
Where anyone can turn on and off any route in any scenario. I was also going to put in chat box our upcoming calendar for other events that we're doing, in-person events. So at those places, we're happy to talk through with you if you care about specific routes and just want to talk about those. We're happy to do that in person as well.
Well, I wish you guys would have had more riders involved today. Like I said, I've ridden the bike. I was without a car for almost 2 years because I wrecked mine right before COVID, and I thought there's no point in me having a car because I'm working at home for the time being. And then, like I said, my office is a mile from the house. I'm very impressed with what Lawrence has as a bus system as it is, just because it does cover a lot of area. But I think you guys have put a lot of thought. And I think both scenarios cover a lot of areas that have been probably left out. So I'm very impressed and congratulate you guys on your work.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. I will say one of the things, you mentioned riders, and that's something we've talked about recently as staff as well. So in addition to community events that are scheduled, we do have some planned outreach directly on buses and at the bus platform to get some more one-on-one interaction with people on the routes they care about. So
that's a good idea.
Reviewing, events like this and survey, these are all tools we're using to gather feedback, and we're trying to think of other ways to do that as well, so we get good information from the right people over this next month.
Yeah, nobody thinks they care enough until it's already in effect, and then you kind of like go, I gave you all these opportunities.
Just while we have Richard and John, while we have you guys as like a captive audience, Rebecca, did you bring up the map by chance, the interactive map?
But I can do that now. Just a second.
Oh, because it might be useful to give a really quick tutorial on it, because it's not exactly the same format as what we've seen here tonight.
That'd be great.
Because I don't want to take the survey. If I could just get to the interactive map directly, that'd be my preference.
Yeah. There's just a few nuances that we want to point out on that interactive map. So, Rebecca, if you have it up, I'm going to stop sharing.
I did put it in the chat box as well.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So it's the second link that you put in.
The second one, yes.
Okay. I'll just bookmark that.
But it probably would be, like Boris said, useful to screen share it for a bit to walk through it.
I'm actually not seeing the text. Where's the text box?
If you're screen sharing, you have to hover towards the top of the screen.
I see it. Okay, now I see it.
So I can share my screen.
Okay.
Let me just
stop.
Okay, this is fun, by the way. I've already linked to the other one. I like it.
Yeah. Did you get it, Rebecca, or not yet?
Not yet. It just.
Nice.
For some reason, when I tried to click on the link, it's like giving me an error. Just a sec.
It can't be that hard. Come on.
Okay.
To use the thing.
So I actually got it to come up. So
Okay.
Here,
Yeah.
let me share again.
You say I've got it up.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, Boris, I can talk about it if you want. So basically the idea was that you can view all the routes, like all the routes in the scenario by turning on those first couple layers at the top of the layer tab. So current system, route 1, or scenario 1 and scenario 2. But then also, John, like you were saying, if you want to just do a route to route comparison, it has every route called out and every scenario. So yeah, Boris, if you click on, so this is scenario 1, what route 1 will look like, what scenario 2 route 1 will look like. So, and as well as the current route 1. So if you zoom in, you can see it has like different line types for the different scenarios. You can see how it was and how it will be. So you can go to your routes and figure out like how they might change. But also, as Boris said, like if some overarching stuff is changing, it's also useful to kind of look at the overall scenario maps as well, just to understand that you might now have a more direct route to where you need to go.
Yeah, it's the cumbersome part is that you have to turn on and off each one manually. You can't like do a global. I think if you reload the page, then everything clears out. So that's kind of the main reset tool. And then you'll also notice that once you get into the individual routes, the routes are color coded by scenario, not by routes. So you have scenario 2 route 1, and then scenario 2 route 3, and they're all black because all of scenario 2 is black, and all of scenario 1 is orange.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Okay.
So do you have some software engineer that writes all this code for you, or do you get something off the shelf?
Rebecca's our software engineer.
Yeah, there's like there's some dashboard kind of template stuff you can use to make the maps, but
Nice
a little
job.
bit of both.
That's nice job security. That's beautiful work.
Yeah. So that's the interactive map, and that is on the survey. So if you go to the survey, you can look at this and then go back and answer questions about what you saw in this interactive map. All right.
Okay, I'm going to have to take off here, but I really appreciate the time we spent together, and I want to wish you the best of luck.
All right. Thanks so much. I think we're actually at the end of our time anyway. So unless there's any other questions, I'll just say good night and thank you all.
Yeah. Thanks. Here, I'll let you even see my little face.
Oh, hey, Richard. Okay. All right, then.
Hair, Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I'll definitely be sharing this map too with some other people. Know a lot of runners and bike riders and people who would probably take it if they understood it better. So,
okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.